Hello, welcome to the first virtual monthly community hangout in the US West. I'm Shai. I'm part of the developer relations team. I'm so excited to be here. We've been doing meetups all day. We had a meetup earlier in Europe. We did a meetup for the East Coast. That was a lot of fun, and we're here now to bring it home with the West Coast edition of the Contentful meetup. I'm really excited. Before I kick things off, though, I do want to have a second where we can introduce everyone else that you're seeing on screen, and I figure we can get started with the person to my my left, I guess. David, if you want to tell us who you are and a little about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hey, so I'm David. I'm also working on the DevRel team over at Contentful, and I'm focusing a lot on the app framework and all the new cool functionality there. So if you see me in the community channels or any of that stuff, hit me up if you got questions on any of that stuff. I'm always happy to talk about it. And I guess I'll pass it off down to Marcelo.
I feel like the Brady Bunch, I guess.
It's kind of like that.
I'm not Jan, though. So, all right. Hi, I'm Marcelo. I'm Senior Content Solutions Architect for a SaaS company called Service Titan. I am also the founder of headlesscreator.com. And I'll pass it on to,
Yeah, see, it's tricky, right?
I can't. To Ryan. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Weimer. I'm a senior account executive at a marketing agency in the Bay Area called Epsilon. So, happy to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. So, all right, Ryan, Marcelo, I'm going to kick you off the stage for just a second. And David, I guess I'm going to kick you out as well. I'm just going to go over some housekeeping and then we can punt it back over for your talks, if that sounds good to you. Cool. Let's do this. All right. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the monthly community hangout. I'm really excited to have you here. I want to say welcome. We're all really excited to be doing this. I hope they're valuable for you, and do let us know if this is something you'd like us to keep doing in the future as well. I've got a little bit of housekeeping to do, and then we can go over the agenda. So first off, we do have a code of conduct that we try to abide by for all events that Contentful puts on and participates in. Just if you feel like anyone is making you feel not safe or not included or anything like that, maybe in the comments or in the Slack where we're having a conversation, or even any of the things that we're saying on stream, please do let us know. We have a formal policy for reporting any sort of incident that you can check out. We keep all of these documents up on our GitHub and also in the Contentful documentation. If you'd prefer to see it there, you can just search for code of conduct in our docs or head over to this GitHub repo. We have a list of moderators as well, so if anyone does do something that results in needing to make a report, you can reach out to any of the moderators on that list. For tonight, it's I'm the one that's awake, and there's a few other people that are awake as well. So feel free to reach out to anyone if anything does happen. As always, we really want to plug our Contentful developer portal. This is the nonstop shop for anything Contentful developers. It's where we have links to our documentation, our forums. You can sign up for our Contentful Slack there, which is a really great community of people answering questions and being supportive and kind of sharing the projects that they build. And also on the developer portal, we have things like our tutorials, our blog posts, our technical videos, and all of the exciting kind of cool content that we put out that ideally should be a helpful resource for you to learn whatever you need to about building on Contentful, or maybe even serve as some inspiration for you as you try and figure out what the next thing that you want to make is. We actually just put out a GraphQL course, which might be one of those things that inspires you to make something new. It certainly inspired me to make something new. We're really excited about GraphQL at Contentful. It's gone from being an enterprise-only feature in past years to being available for everyone. And to celebrate that, we made this really cool course. Stefan Judas, one of our coworkers on the DevRel team, who's based out of Berlin, put together this really lovely course that covers, how to get started with GraphQL generally, and then dives into, what you can do with it in terms of Contentful, and also just gives you an overview of how to get started with React. And if you build something with GraphQL, we want to hook you up with some swag as well. We have this really great GraphQL swag program that if you build something using the GraphQL API, we will hook you up with some secret stickers, and they're limited edition. And once they're gone, that's it. and also some of the famous Contentful socks as well. So if you do make something, do share it with us so we can hook you up with a nice reward. And lastly, just we do stream every week. We've been doing them Tuesdays at 11 Eastern, which I guess is 8 Pacific. I'm based in New York, and so these are all scheduled in my time zone. And you can check out contentful.com/events for all of our live streams. We have them all listed up there, and definitely do check them out. We've done some really great ones in the past, things like working with other APIs. We did one fairly recently with Courier where we built kind of a notification system when you hit publish using Contentful webhooks and their distribution services. We've done stuff with folks like Nuxt, and we're really excited to do a lot of live coding every Tuesday. So please do come join us if you're interested. And lastly, before we start working on the changelog, I just want to go through the agenda. So first up, we're going to do a quick what's new in Contentful and just look at the changelog and some of the highlights in the last couple of weeks. Then we're going to head it over to Marcelo, and Marcelo is going to talk about creating a content model to support app microcopy in multiple locales. And then Ryan is going to pop back and share what he's been building, showcasing a Gatsby, Contentful, and Netlify project. We'll jump into an AMA, and then if folks are interested and want to stick around, we'll do some games and some social stuff. So for the social stuff, it's we're going to be playing Among Us, which is this game that I tried for the first time today, which is a lot of fun. It's kind of like an online version of Mafia or Werewolf, if you've played those, where someone is a secret traitor and trying to kill everyone on the spaceship, and everyone else is trying to keep the spaceship working. I'm still feeling betrayed from this morning from some of the game that we played, so maybe we can play it again and help me get past that. And with the I built this section, just if you want to share something, we'd love to feature all the things that you're building after we have a chance to highlight some of the work that Ryan's doing. If anyone's interested, we'd love to showcase it. And you can make a submission for that in our Slack. We are also going to be hanging out in the Slack in addition to the comments as well. So feel free to come chat with us in the Slack in the monthly Hangout channel, or just leave a comment wherever you're watching as well. We are responding to those too. Yeah, so I guess we should get started with what's new in Contentful. And I'm going to bring David back in for this to give me a hand with this. So,
Hey,
David, how you been?
not bad. Seems like we got a lot of new stuff cooking, so I'm pretty excited to show off some of this stuff.
Yeah, it should be fun. So let's get started then. So, all right, to first get started, if you want to check out our changelog, it's at contentful.com/developers/changelog. There's all sorts of ways to keep track of it. You can go to that page, or you can also subscribe via RSS. And then lastly, we do have a changelog channel in our Slack, in our community Slack, and you can just join that room, and you'll get a ping every time we make a update or an addition. But today, I really want to dive into 3 specific kind of areas. And first off, I want to talk about our GraphQL API. So we've implemented a couple new things to GraphQL since we last did a meetup was a couple months ago back in 2019. So we've implemented quite a few things since 2019, but specifically, most recently, we've implemented 3 new things that I want to highlight. First off, graphical is this. If you've used the Contentful GraphQL API, or a GraphQL API before, you might know about graphical. For those who haven't heard about it, graphical is this really lovely tool that you can use to start writing queries and view what's going on in your data layer and build out kind of the requests that you need to make to actually get access to data. Now, in the past, if you wanted to hit Contentful's instance of graphical and dive into Contentful's data, you would have to go to the GraphQL API. And so you would have to, open up a new tab, and you'd have to type in the link, and you'd have to make sure your link had your spaces configured and your API keys configured. And, sometimes you could bookmark that, but if you're like me and you forget to bookmark things, or you forget the power of bookmarks, you're always constantly digging around to find the API key and set up the Explorer endpoint quite right. Now we've built this really great integration, this really cool app that Stefan has put together. He's taken the GraphQL Playground, which is an open source kind of graphical utilization service, and made it so you can view GraphQL right within the Contentful web app. You install it, And then in the apps drop down, you'll be able to jump into it and you'll be able to get all of the graphical magic, and it'll be pre-populated with your API keys and authorization tokens, which is really nice. And it still comes with all of that magical documentation that you get with graphical and GraphQL in general. So I think this is pretty cool. Next up is we've expanded our localization support. So we're now doing a lot more in terms of localization within GraphQL. So you've got the full rollout of languages and allowed languages, similar to what's listed on our standard SDK. You've got that all within GraphQL now as well, which is really exciting. You can do filtering on it. You can specifically call the locale out if you're looking for a specific thing on that as well. So I think that'll be really useful for folks that are running, multiple languages and lots of stuff out in the wild. And then lastly, we had a community member point out like, hey, it's really difficult to discover if things exist or get objects using the exist filter. And so we took that feedback and we were able to quickly fix that bug. And so now, filtering on the _exist condition does work properly, which is really great. And so if you have any requests or feedback, or if anything seems like it's not working properly, do let us know. We do listen to that, and we do try to be pretty responsive and pretty fast when it comes to fixing those things. So let us know what's going on. So yeah, the exist filter is working here, which is really great. So last thing for me, and then I'm going to give it to David to take over, is that we've made some updates to the web app, which are really exciting. So we've had scheduled publishing for entries for a while now, and we've gone ahead and we've added scheduled publishing for assets. So if you, let's say, are using some assets in addition to your entry, you can also schedule those to publish as well. Maybe you've got some embargoed logos or some images that you don't want going out on the Contentful CDN until a specific time. You're able to make sure that happens, and you can coordinate all of those publishing events via the scheduler, which is really nice. We've also updated the way references work. This is actually out of date. I took a look at the changelog a couple minutes ago, and we're already out of date since making this deck. But we've added the way the reference view works, so it's easier to kind of reorder and adjust things. And the create new entry and link entry, existing entries have actually been merged into a single button, and it's a much bigger button now. So it should hopefully be even easier than ever to use the reference field and be a little smarter and more useful than before. I do, and we've got custom aliases. We've expanded our environment aliases. So in the past, we've had environment aliases as a thing that you're able to use instead of, running scripts on your master environment. You'd actually just be able to make changes to master and, match it up to whatever environments you've been using. You can now actually promote an environment to be used instead of master. So master becomes kind of this static identifier that points to things rather than a like kind of ongoing like linear branch that you mess around in other places, and sometimes you bring those changes into master and sometimes you don't. Now you can replace what master actually is, and more specifically you can roll back and use something else if that doesn't work. So that's environment aliases, and we've added custom environment aliases. So now you can have 2 additional environments. Maybe you have a staging server or a QA server. You can use that same static identifier style workflow to work on delivering those changes to your content model and to your content, which is really exciting. If that sounds interesting, we're actually hosting a webinar tomorrow about this. So I've got to, as soon as the meetup is over, I'm going to bed, and then I'm waking up and I'm doing this webinar, which should be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about how to integrate custom aliases into your CI/CD pipeline and how you can build out like a kind of formal deployment process with Contentful being part of that. And David, it's over to you. It's your turn.
Cool. Yeah, so we've got this new feature. Well, it's semi-new. For those of you that have worked with UI extensions in the past, you probably will know about instance parameters. And for those of you that don't really know what that is, it's just the ability to have your UI extension kind of customized per field location or per field editor location. It's just a more granular way to get configuration into your app. And now what we've got with apps is not only do we have the ability for you to have installation parameters, which allows you to either kind of grandly customize your app, or you can get more fine detailed with the installation parameters. But we also bring in those instance parameters as well, which is the field level parameters. Excuse me. And so this allows us to have like a more granular and fluid dynamic experience inside the apps. And I think it's also really helpful because a lot of people that are migrating their UI extensions over to apps, this kind of helps ease that transition where they actually don't have to make any changes. They can just have their apps have the instance parameters that their UI extensions had used in the past. So I think that's pretty cool. And I think if we look like what we're looking at here is an example of an app which uses the field editor location. So these are the new field tab locations. You can skip between the editor and custom editors if you want. And here, per editor experience, we have instance parameters that allow us to customize that per editor experience, which is like usually in a content type or something like that in a field level location. And I think if we skip ahead, this is showing the place where you can have your installation parameters show up, your instance parameters show up in the UI. So for those of us that are more visual, like myself, I like to configure my apps using the app definition UI that we provide to developers and admins of organizations. And here we've got this new location. So down at the bottom, you can actually add instance parameters. You can add multiple instance parameters, and they all have different types. So you can have like a text field, or you can have Booleans or flags or multiple selects. And again, this is just a way for your users to get data into your app to help it become more customizable and more configurable. And I think along with that, there's a few differences between the installation parameters and the instance parameters. What the installation parameters allow you to do, it's kind of like a superset. It allows you to have full configuration over your app. You can configure per content type, per field, even per space or environment, or any other kind of custom configuration you want. Whereas the instance parameters are very focused on the field level field editor location. So they're very location specific. And I think a lot of people use them. We say that, they define the appearance of the app, but I think you can use them to do a lot of different things. And we've seen a lot of examples of people configuring their apps in a lot of different ways. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, for those of you that are more interested in reading more about like how this all works, I know the app framework is a little bit new. We released it back in February, so it's still we're taking the training wheels off soon, but a lot of this is documented in the extensibility section of our developer docs. We have two sections. So the first section is apps, and that talks about all of our marketplace apps, which are all open source. So if you're ever curious about how we built our own third-party integrations, you can go and check out the code on GitHub and see how we did everything. And, feel free to do some copy and paste if you want to build your own apps. And the app framework section talks more about the framework itself. It goes into the high-level concepts, and it also dives into a lot of the technical details that are really going to interest developers when they want to build very feature-rich applications that have a lot of functionality.
So let's go into our let's show that to you section, and I'm going to hand over the screen and the microphone to Marcelo. So let me bring you in. How you doing, Marcelo?
Hey there, how are you?
I'm doing good. Are you ready for your talk? You need anything or good to go?
I think so. Let's see. I got my water here, so I think I'm good.
Sounds good. All right. Just as always, for folks watching, if you do have any questions, let us know in the comments or in the Slack channel, and we will be back with any of those questions for Marcelo when at the end of his talk. So Marcelo, take it away. Go for it.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. And so today I'm going to show you an app that we've been working on in my work. It started as a hackathon project, basically. We have a hackathon yearly in our company, and this is a project that I submitted for the hackathon, and we're looking at now converting this into a real project. And the idea behind this project is to localize screens. So you can see this is an app. I work for a company that is a SaaS company, and they have a web app. And we go after a variety of verticals. So, for example, we may go after plumbers or electricians, everybody in the service industry. So they use our app to manage their business. And every industry may have their own way of calling, for example, a client. Some may call them a customer, some may call them a client. It doesn't matter. Also, beyond the terminology of the app screen, we want the ability to customize it by language, right? So Spanish, English, whatever language we choose. So this is sort of a quick peek of what I'm going to show you. What I'll do is I'll show you real quick. I'll start with I'm looking at my notes here just to make sure. Some of the goals when doing this app was, number one, to empower our authors to be able to manage the microcopy. That was the most important thing, is be able to move away microcopy from engineers and put it in the power of authors, which are the people that really know how to write this microcopy, right? So trying to remove engineers completely from that. And then the other was to localize by terminology, by industry terminology, and by language as well. So from the user's perspective, we want to allow them to select their own terminology or create their own terminology and rename all the fields in the screen and the language they want. And from the author's perspective, we want them to be able to create industries ad hoc without engineering involvement, and translate all the field names by industry into whatever language they want, again, without the involvement of engineering. Again, it's transferring that power. It's not so much the power, but transferring the boring stuff, right, that engineers really don't want to do, which is writing content and putting it into, what engineers consider boring, but putting it into the hands of the real professionals with content, which are content authors, right? And so that was the whole goal here. All right, and I believe Shai told me that most people already know localization. I'm just going to run through real quick in Contentful for those of you that may not be aware of localization. By default, when Contentful considers localization a mixture of country and language. So you could have English US, or you can have English Britain, or you can have English Australia, right? So that's what a locale is considered in Contentful. By default, at least in the US, when you get your space, it comes with the English US, for us at least, set up as our default locale. Then depending on the kind of Contentful license you have, you may be able to add just one more locale, or you may be able to have 30 locales. It really depends on your license that you have. But what you do is just to enable more locales in Contentful. And again, I'm reviewing this. If Shai jump in here and tell me if people already know this, I can skip this part. But to enable more locales, you go to settings and you go to locales. And in here is where you would add as many locales as, number one, you're able to via your license, and number two, you want. So what you do is you click on Add Locale, and then you would select, and you can see Contentful gives you a bunch. And you can see how it is French, and then the country, right? Like French Canada, French Cameroon. So you could see that's the combination. And they have tons and tons of them. And through the API, you can also create custom locales, which is really interesting. Once you select your locale, you can select a fallback. And that means that if, for example, you have a field that somebody didn't translate into Spanish, it'll fall back. If you selected Spanish as your locale, you can select which language you want to fall back if it wasn't filled out. And then a couple of settings here. The real important one, well, they're all important, but the most important one is this one: allow empty fields for this locale. If you don't want to force somebody to translate, so for example, you may a product name you may not want to translate. It may be the same across. So you can say allow empty fields for this locale, and then they can not translate it. They can save the entry, and then in the front end, it'll fall back to whatever this is, whatever the fallback is. So the other two are basically that you're enabling editing, and then you're enabling the API basically to access this locale. And what's really important is then once you do this, you can also create a content governance around locales. So you can only enable translation for a specific language. So a translator can come in that does Spanish and only will see all the Spanish fields to be able to translate, whereas a translator that does French can do those things. So you can do content governance around that. And then, so that's enabling system-wide. Let me discard, I don't want to add this. Once you enable it system-wide, then in your content model, that you're still not doing localization. You have to go to your content model and then figure out which field do you want to localize. Not everything you want to localize, right? So for example, I can go into the code ID, let's just say as an example, click on settings and say, I want to enable localization for this field. And what that means is that for this field, there'll be X number of extra fields, one for each language that you enabled. Right, so if I have 3 locales and I say enable localization, I will see 3 code ID fields. It'll say one for English, one's for Spanish, one for, in my case, I have Russian set up in there. And I'll show you. But what's important here is that when you do create your content model, you're not going to enable localization in every field. You're going to enable localization only in the fields that you want to translate. So for example, a product content type, they may have a SKU. You're not going to localize the SKU. In general, the SKU may be the same across all locales. Let's just say that. But you may localize, you may not even localize the product name, but you may localize the product price. And the product description. So you would only enable those 2 fields as localization because you want to not over localize everything when you're not even going to need it. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a pretty good overview of localization within Contentful. Oh yeah, the other thing which you can do in Contentful, well, and I'll show you later, but it's through GraphQL. Then you can pull through locales, and they just covered 5 minutes ago about how you can actually do multiple. The one cool thing with GraphQL now is you can pull multiple locales within one query, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So anyway, that is the overview, the general overview of localization within Contentful. Let me show you, going back to my app here, you can see that the app, now a lot of these things here, we made them, they're kind of dummy because what we were focusing on is how do we create a content model that can support multiple screens. This is a screen, the booking screen, with multiple fields and multiple languages and multiple industries. Okay, so let me show you the flow. Let me start with the flow of the app real quick here. We'll go here. So the idea here is that in Contentful, authors can manage the language and the industry. So they can create multiple industries, add multiple languages, and manage all the entries for that there. So we have a content model to support the language, the industry, and then also custom company terms. And in the front end, we'll pull all that information. Now, the custom company terms, those are going to be created by users. They can actually go in. If they don't like the industry we provide, they can go and create their own industry. Like, for example, Joe's Plumbing, and they have their own terminology in Joe's Plumbing Shop. And then they can create all that terminology for all the fields. And I'll show you how that goes. Well, that part is not functioning right now. Everything else is. But I'll show you the screens of how it's going to look. And then the users, the same users, not only can create their own terminology, but they should be able to select for each screen the language and the industry they want that screen to reflect, right? So that is the workflow of the app. Then we started talking about content model, and in the content models, we had to figure out, okay, how do we write a very scalable content model? And what I mean by scalable is we don't want to change the content model once we're live. We don't want to involve more developers every time we want to add an industry or every time we want to add a new language, right? We want to be able to empower the authors, as that was one of the goals that I covered before, to manage all of that. And to do that, we needed to create a content model that allows us to do that. So you can see right here that we started with a screen content type that, and okay, this content model isn't fully expanded. This is more for the the testing, the POC that we're working on, right? We're going to expand it much more. But having a screen content type allows us to create multiple screens, right? Every web app has hundreds and hundreds of screens. The code ID is going to be the URL of that particular screen, let's say. Now, a screen, if we go back to here, a screen such as this has tons of fields. So you can see all the fields that it has. It has labels for the fields. It has buttons. It has all of that. So the content model, going back to the content model here, we have a field content type, and the field content type has, my standard is to do internal naming for our authors to search, and then we have external naming for whatever we want to display, right? But you could see that a field has a code ID that the developer is going to use to do that glue between the content and the front end. And it has values. Now, a field, you may say, okay, well, a field is going to have, if we have three languages, it's going to have 3 fields of values, right? Well, no, not really. Because we're not going to localize the values here. The values here is actually pointing to a combination of industry and value, okay? And that's where we need to start localizing. Because what we did is we have an industry content type. And in this industry content type, we can create as many industries as we want. We can define which industry is the default industry. And then if we have a fallback, just like localization works, we can say, hey, if they pick this industry, but they don't fill out a field, this is the fallback industry to populate that field. So that way the field is never, you will see the code. We actually expose the code ID so developers so users know which code to use for every particular field. So I'll show you that in just a minute. But the field itself is a combination. It's a reference to the field value content type, which is a reference to industry and to the value. And notice that even though I have 4 content types, the only place I do localization is at the value level. Because all I need to do is when I create a field value for this industry, I need all the languages, all the values for that particular industry, and then attach it to the field, which is then attached to the screen. This, I think you will visualize this a lot more when I jump into Contentful, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm going to pause for a second. I don't know if there's any questions, Shai. If not, I'll just continue on just to make sure we're good.
Yeah, you're good to keep going.
We're good to keep going. Okay, cool. So anyway, so that's the content model right there. One of the things we had to do for our authors, right, is come up with sort of a template for them to start populating, just preliminary for this POC. For all the industries and all the fields, in this case only for the call screen, right, that I showed you. So you can see that we have 3 fields. We have the Service Titan 3 industries. We have the Service Titan default industry, we have the HVAC industry, and then we have chimney sweep, which this one we haven't populated yet. But for every field in the call booking screen, we have, these are all the fields that we know we want to control, and then these are the IDs that we standardize from the development perspective, right? So if the developer will look for that particular ID in Contentful, and then as long as that code ID is used in Contentful, the glue will happen automatically, right? So one of the things we're looking at doing is having it where it's more automated. When a screen is coded, it'll generate all the code IDs and pre-populate all the entries in Contentful. So then the developer, the author will go into Contentful and just update the entries based on the name. They won't even have to worry about code ID. That's in the next phase. But you can see for each field, for each industry, we have a English, Spanish, and we did a Russian version just to show the variety that we could do. Okay, so we did that. Let me show you that. Okay, and this, one of the things, okay, we'll jump into the app here. So here's the app. One of the things we added is this button up here. This doesn't exist in a real app. And let me make it a little bigger. There we go. I think you can see that probably a little. Let's go see if we can go a little more. Okay, something happened there. Whoop. There we go. I think I hit the minus instead. Okay, so you can see, yeah, it starts messing up. I think I'm gonna have to Yeah, keep it at that. Let's go back one more. Anyway, we added this world icon, which represents localization. In there, you can choose, the user can choose the industry. So Service Titan is our default industry, or the HVAC industry, and then whatever language. And right now, as you remembered, I have 3 locales set up in there: English, Spanish, and Russian. So if I do Spanish, and also notice we did Spanish Argentina, right? We could have just done Spanish, which is the ES by itself, and that covers all countries. But you can get really localized to a particular country because, for example, maybe client, which is cliente in Spanish, maybe in Argentina it's something different. It isn't, but as an example. So when I click on set preference, you can see it changes everything to buscar cliente, nombre, calle, unidad, código postal. The whole thing goes Spanish, right? We can do the same thing with Russian, and we have everything in Russian, okay? Now, I'm not going to even dare pronounce this because I can't even read this thing, but trust me, our developer, the actual developer that I work with, which he's amazing, he is Russian, and he verified that this is all correct. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Now, I can go to HVAC, for example, which is a different industry, and I can go back to English, click on Set Preference, and you can see that now it says Search for Client versus, if I go to Service Titan, it says Search for Customer, right? So there's some minor nomenclature differences by industry, but the point here is not so much those differences, is the fact that you can have those differences on any field you want. So if we go into Contentful, I'll show you in Contentful the actual, here are the 4 content types that you see. And I'll show you back here, right? The 4 content types. What I like to do is, for example, field value, the combination of field value is only valid within here, field. So I call those components as opposed to content types. They're content types in Contentful, but I call them more components, meaning that they're throwaway information that by themselves mean nothing. They only mean something in reference to the content type they're embedded in, right? So what I do is I create those content types as underscore, so authors know, don't touch that. That's not for you to touch, because remember, if you go into content and you say add entry, everything shows here. So our authors know that anything with underscore, don't worry about it, because you're never going to use it. It's only in the context of the field itself. So let's start with the screen. We've only have one screen right now, right? And you can see the screen here. You can see the internal name, external name, the code, which is the URL, and then here are all the fields. So you can see a bunch of fields for this particular screen. Okay, so if I click on a field, like for example, search section title, let's go to the app. This is this, search for customer. Let's go there. We'll click on search section title, and then you'll notice that the values are that throwaway component content type. This is only this information makes only sense here, nowhere else. So we're not going to use this anywhere else. So you can see that they created 2 entries, one for Service Titan default and one for HVAC industry. When we click on Service Titan default, you can see that we have the industry type, the name that's for the entry title, and then the value. So it says search for customers. But wait a minute, how come we only see one and we're not seeing everything? Well, here, if you look at right there, you can see that we don't have Russian and Spanish enabled to view. We already enabled it system-wide, right? But we haven't, now we see it. Okay, and the other cool thing, for those of you that aren't aware of this, and if you are, great, you can change multiple locales to single locale. And the nice thing is, instead of seeing, for example, let's say you have 20 languages, instead of seeing 20 fields, you can do one at a time, and it would only show you the one that you need to translate. So that's kind of neat. But I'm going to go back to multiple. So you can see that at this level, the only field that we localize, even though you would think, God, we have to localize every content type, you don't. We only localize value, because that's the only one where it really matters. For this industry, the value for the field search section title is going to be this. So for example, if I say for Service Titan default, search for customers, I'm just going to do that so you can see it, that it's really live. I'm going to click on publish, and then I'm going to go back. Okay, so we're good on that. I should be able to now hit refresh, and there it is. So you can see search for customers, right? So I could go in back, I can go back into Contentful, on the Service Titan default one, change it back. And then the Russian I'm not going to touch because I don't know it, but buscar, we'll say muchos clientes, lots of clients. Okay, so if we go back to Locals app and I select Service Titan, but Spanish now, set preference, buscar muchos clientes. So you can see that it's pulling the right thing. So, all right, let's change this back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you so you can see. Okay, so the concept, you understand the concept is you have, if screen has multiple fields and the fields themselves has these throwaway field values that are pertinent only within that field entry, and they're in a mixture of industry and value for that industry, and the value is what's localized, and we can add as many languages as we want. So we can easily go now and create a new industry here if we wanted to. So why don't we do that before I jump into, actually no, let me jump into GraphQL real quick, because I want to show you what that looks like and how you can pull it all. And again, if you already know this, then my apologies, but maybe there's some of you that don't. But let's get screens. So we'll get screen collection. We'll get all the items for screen collection. And we'll get the internal name, the code ID for the screen collection. And then we'll get the fields array. So remember, we're going to get, for screen, we're going to get this, which will give us all the fields for this. So let's do that real quick. And we'll get items. And we'll get internal name, we'll get code ID, and let's do this. Let's limit this because otherwise we'll get a limit. And I know we don't have as many. We only have one screen anyway. Limit, we'll do 60 here. So when we run this, there you go. So here you can see that for the call screen, we have a whole bunch of fields. And you can see the code ID for each of those fields. And that code ID, right, matches these here that we entered. Now, I lost my GraphQL. There we go. So let's get now the values for each of those fields. So we can go in here, and we'll get values collection. So if we traverse down, these are the fields. Now we're going to get this array here, this values one. That's what happens when you have way too many windows open. It's hard to keep up. All right, we're going to get items. And for the values, we're going to get the actual value. Okay? Now watch what happens when you do that. So I see search for customer, search for client. Excuse me. That is by the industry type. So if we do name, no, actually values collection here. Industry, and we'll say external name. Click on plus. Yeah, it's too complex, so it's okay. Let's get value collections. We'll do limit 10. That should be enough anyway. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so you can see that, for example, the call screen, we have search section title. Here's the ID for it. Here are all the items. And there's the value, but it's giving me English, right? So how do you get multiple values back in all the locales? And this is, I believe, what they showed you before. Right now, because we know value is a locale, we can do locale like that, and we'll do en US, right? If I do that, it's still going to give me en US. Now I can change this, but instead of doing that, let's use aliases in GraphQL. So we'll say in English. We'll do that. And then let's copy, paste. We'll say in Spanish. And we'll say in Russian. And then this is going to be ESAR. And then this one was RU. So now when we click on play, there's you're getting the one excuse me, you're getting the one item back with the industry. So for Service Titan industry, for this field, right, the field is search section title. there are 3 values for Service Titan industry default. This one for the HVAC industry, we have these 3 values. You can see what it is in English and Spanish, and of course you can name the alias whatever you want. I just decided to do that just for simplicity's sake. Anyway, this shows you what the code is actually getting back. So that's how it could switch between them. So let's go ahead and again, if there's any questions, Shai, please interrupt me and jump in. Otherwise, I'm going to continue, but I'm going to wait and take a quick sip of water here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Contentful, and marketing said that we now have to support a new industry, the chimney industry, right? We have to support that industry now. So let's go back here. We're going to go to, and Shai, if I'm running too long, I don't know how far to go, so please just tell me to stop. Otherwise, I'll continue here. But we'll go into industry, content type. We'll add, here we have 2 industries, as you can see. Let's add a new industry. We'll add a new industry, and we'll call it chimney. Chimney? Is that how you spell industry? I don't know. Nope. Perfect. Thank you. Spelled correct. All right. And we're going to say industry as the code for the developer, right? Let's say we agree with the developer, that's for that. And no, it's not a default industry, and I don't want a fallback industry. By the way, we haven't implemented this yet. This is a brand new enhancement that we're working on, the fallback, so we haven't implemented yet. But I'm going to go ahead and publish this industry. And now I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to set preference again so it refreshes. Okay. But now I'm going to go here, and you can see that we now have chimney. Now watch what happens. When I select chimney, I'm going to say English. I'm going to say set preference. Okay, so this is where the code, the developer was super smart to say, hey, why don't we just expose the code? This is for us internally. We're figuring out a better way for actual users, right? But this is the code that they have to use as the code ID to be able to do that tie, right? For example, and once we have the fallback, once we implement the fallback, like if we say fallback to service time default, then it'll show everything that that is already not populated in this industry. So we're going to go ahead and update. Let's do the screen search title. We're going to go ahead and update that. So we added the new chimney industry. Now I'm going to go back to screen, call screen. I got a search section title, and let's review this real quick. We have for HVAC industry, you can see we have the industry that it's selected, and we have the search for client, all of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a content. We're going to add existing content, and it'll be chimney because that's the industry, and we'll say chimney. For some reason, I just can't spell a chimney industry. The value is going to be, I don't know what we should call it, cust. Let's just say short for customer. In Russian, okay, I have no clue, but we'll say cust in Russian. And then here, we're going to say cliente bueno. Doesn't matter. We'll publish this. We'll publish this one because we just added a new chimney industry just to this field. So now we have, for the chimney industry, we have the value for this field in 3 different languages. So now if we go back to here, and I'm going to set preference again, so it basically refreshes. Cust, because it's in English. If I select Spanish, set preference, cliente bueno, and if I select Russian, cust in Russian, right? Of course. But so let's go back. I'm going to select a different English. We'll go back there. Okay. So that takes care of, so now it becomes totally scalable because an author can go in there. If marketing comes and goes, hey, we need to support this new industry, fine, we'll support this new industry. We have to create all the fields for every screen. We have the IDs already created, right? So it's a matter of just adding that field industry combination. The author creates the industry, and then they go and populate for every field the new industry with all the values. They don't even have to enter the code because the code is at the field level, right? The code is already entered for them for this screen, is entered right here. You have the call, you have the code ID entered right there. So they don't even have to touch that. And in reality, when we would go into production, this would become a read-only, right, field. Okay, so that's how you create industry. So let's say now that marketing comes and goes, hey, not only do we have a new industry, but we need to also have a new language. Okay, let's do that. We'll go into settings. And this is the administrator of Contentful is probably going to do this, but we'll go into settings, locales, and let's add a locale. Let's add a new one. We'll say, which one should we say? Let's do French. Why not? And then we're going to do a fallback to English. Let's make sure we do a fallback to English. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's do a fallback to English. And then we'll say allow empty fields for this locale. That means that if we don't have the translation for French, it should fall back to English. So we'll click on save. Okay, so we just added locales. We added one new locale. So if I go into locales, you'll see French there. Now, if I go into content, we'll go into call screen. We'll click on field. And then right here, notice that first, before we do that, English, Spanish from Argentina, Russian. We need to change this and add the new locale. You're not really adding the locale, you're just exposing it on the screens. That's all it is. It's been added under locales and settings. So we'll do that. We'll click on this, and now we should see, well, we'll have to go into the industry. But when we go into the industry, we should see, there you go, the value in French, right? So, for example, let's leave it empty right now. If we go to locales here, and we'll select Service Titan. Oh, it doesn't appear because we have to refresh, right? So I'm just going to set preference again. Now we'll go. There is French. We'll select French. Nothing should really change because it should fall back. Let's see. Nothing changed. Search for customers. So let's do this. Google Translate. Customers. And we'll say French. Les clients. Of course, I probably just destroyed the pronunciation there. But let's go back in here. We'll type in les clients, publish. Okay, we're good there. Now we go back and set preference again. Les clients, because we selected French, but everything else falls back. Now, like I said, imagine when we add the fallback for industry, which it's our own custom content type, then it'll do the same thing, but pull the information from the industry. So yeah, this is like, I think the whole overview I wanted to give you guys, but you can see that with a small content model, it becomes super scalable. That's why I always find it funny when I hear people like, oh, Contentful's only given us 48 content types. I'm like, wow, you can do so much with 48 content types. But, you know, in this case, 4 content types allows them to create whatever as many screens as they want, as many fields as they want. Now, of course, other apps can be a bit more complicated. There may be trees within that, right? That field or there's sections in a page, and then you can create something like that. That's an easy thing to do in the content model. So with that, I mean, I'll take any questions or anything else. Shai, back to you.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions, and we've had the little banner on, but we'll have that little Ask Me Anything section at the end, and you're on the Slack fairly regularly as well. So if anyone has any questions afterwards, they can always reach out to you there, if that's okay.
That's totally okay. Do you mind if I ask any developer to reach out to me via Slack to see if they're interested in being on the Contentful show?
Go ahead. You do a great show. Give it a plug.
Real quick, Headless Creator. If you guys see it here, headlesscreator.com. Nothing to sell. It's 100% free. I just do it because I love the community. And I have shows. I have 5 shows. 3 of them are purely on Contentful, and this one, the Contentful Dev Show. I'd love to get any developer that is working with Contentful and doing coding, get you on just like Shai is doing here, get you on and show something to do. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out to me via Slack, Marcelo Lewin. And then just the last one is this one, the Content Modeling Show. I love content modeling. I'm passionate about content modeling, and I do it for fun, which is, I need to get a life, I know. But If you want to know more about content modeling, just watch that show. I stream it every Monday at 5 o'clock Pacific time. That's it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, Marcelo, again for joining us, and I will catch you in the Slack as well.
Sounds good.
Ryan, let me bring in Ryan. Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Great.
You ready for your talk?
I am definitely.
Awesome. So I'm just waiting for you to share your screen, and I will send it your way.
All right.
There we go.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna jump off, and looking forward to this. So see you on the other side.
All right, great. And Marcel, great job, bien hecho. That was very good. It's great to see localization because I know that can be a really tough topic. So really cool what you're doing there. So let me present, and feel free, Shai, to kick me under the virtual table here if you can't see this, but I wanted to present mode.
You can see it, and it looks great.
Okay, perfect. So again, I'm Ryan Weimer. Just some slides here quickly. I put my GitHub and Twitter if you want to reach out afterwards. I'll skip that. But I actually have 3 examples. So this is going to be definitely leaning heavily on the show part of show and tell. But anytime there's a new framework or a new tech stack, this is kind of the what I see a lot of people do. And so it's actually what happened with me with 3 of the technologies that I really like, which are Gatsby, Contentful, and Netlify. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about and how I use them together. So like many people, the first thing I did was I created a simple developer blog to try it out, my own website. When I had success there, quick small business type of project, so a little bit bigger, but still small. And then, once I was starting to feel comfortable with it, I created my own starter template to help other people, get started with this tech stack. So that's what I'm going to be going through briefly here. So again, the first one here is just my own personal website. This isn't exactly going to light the world on fire here, but I think it's something that a lot of developers will do when trying out this new tech stack. So this is completely open source. If you want to check it out, I have all the code on GitHub. I'm using, of course, Gatsby as my front-end frameworks / static site generator, and Netlify for the hosting, and Contentful for the content management. I'm also using some other cool things that are just things that I picked up that I like. Framer Motion is an animation library that I use for page transitions and animations. With the contact form, since this is a static website, I'm using the integration with Netlify. So there is an actual functioning contact form on this website that when you reach out, it'll trigger an email. That Netlify will do that, will trigger an email to me and I can get in contact. I'm also using variable fonts and just a really simple content model in Contentful. So there wasn't a large need for this personal website, right? I have a concept of a web post, like something an article I'm writing or a blog post, and then also a project. Those are really the 2 main content types that I have here. So I'm going to switch over here. Hopefully this works here. I'm going to switch over to this view, go here. I'm going to show you the website. So again, this is where I'm going to show you some of this is the home page. As you scroll, there's various animations. So just having a little fun here. This is kind of like my brief bio talking about myself and some of the things I do. So just kind of having fun with that. And then if we click here, what I was just talking about, I do have a functioning contact form. So if you were to fill this out, this is, so you're johnanddoe.com, test, send a message. It is going to actually function and work, and that'll trigger an email to my Gmail, or my phone just buzzed, I just got it. So that's really cool and simple integration that I have, even though this is a static website that's using static hosting via Netlify. So to kind of show you the different content types, I have the concept of notes. So these are my posts. Nothing too crazy, just a cover image with some content, various ways to call out a pull quote, things like that. So that's an example of a note or a blog post. And then if we go to work, this is where I have the concept of a project. So various projects that I've done. If you click on one of these, similar, there's a hero page, right? But there's some differences. I have in Contentful, I set kind of an example video that's just a quick screen share of the project that I did, and it's more screenshot focused, so less words. And then, of course, with all the rage these days, I did, of course, have to put in light mode, dark mode, just for fun, doing that, so you can see the website in either way. So, like I said, nothing super complicated here, just a clean project, but it is really easy to manage. And once I built this, it's super easy to publish new work and publish new blog posts or notes. So that was my kind of first step into Contentful, Gatsby, and Netlify. And feel anytime, anybody to stop me if there's any questions or you want to ask me about anything in particular. But the next one, which is kind of taking this concept a little bit further and kind of expanding on that, KristenNoel.com. So this is actually my wife. She's a wedding photographer here in the Bay Area. She, of course, needed a website, and I wanted to do a website that kind of was part of the Jamstack, the JavaScript APIs and markups, something that would use Gatsby. But a lot of the issues I ran into initially was with an image-heavy website like that can be quite difficult. And this is where Contentful for me really shines. Because on this website, I actually have 7,700 high-quality images, and this is part of Contentful's. And Shai, you can jump in here, but the integration that you have with the image handling and media handling is really great. And so the website itself is hosted on Netlify, but the images, has that integration with Contentful. So they're actually hosted via Contentful, the images themselves. So I do have a little bit more content types on this website. The whole point of this was I made a website that looks good and showcases my wife's work, but then she's able to go in as another user and as a non-technical person, create a gallery, add images. So we have a few different things that my simple website didn't have. So we have the concept of a page, she can go in and create a page. The concept of a gallery, that's a really big component that she has, is galleries will showcase a specific wedding or a specific session that she did. There's also kind of reusable components that I have scattered throughout on different pages, like FAQs, client reviews, and then pricing in particular is a little bit different, which I can show you in just a moment. So I'll jump over to her website here. Again, just going for a really clean, modern look. You can peruse the website. I can put these links in the chat afterwards. But all of this content is housed in Contentful. Here's the concept of a client review that I was talking about. You click on it, you can see the image and kind of get the client review and read more about it. So that's kind of one concept I have, a specific content type. And if I jump into, we'll go to the blog, which houses our galleries. We have the concept of categorization. There's wedding galleries, lifestyle, and then resources is kind of a special, unique category. So if I click on one of these, it opens up the gallery, Tessa and Tripp's wedding. You can scroll down and read about it. Here's the little intro, and here are all the images. And again, like I said, this is all the images that are hosted via Contentful. You get the integration with Gatsby and Contentful is really great, that I'm only uploading one high-res image, and through the integration, what's actually getting spit out, I have a picture element with the various, sizes and different variations of it depending on what device you're on and what size. So minimal work from the content editor's perspective, but a really great experience. And then if I go to our contact form here, again, this is a contact form that uses Netlify, although it is a little bit more complex because she has specific needs from a business perspective. There's this concept of segmentation that she wants to do before somebody reaches out to her. She tries to kind of put them into a funnel, right? Whether they're a wedding client who's interested in engagements, elopements, and kind of a wedding event, or if they're more of a family, they want a family session, or if there's just general question. We kind of want to get that segmentation up front. So depending on which of these that you select, There's going to be specific questions like number of guests, price point, etc. Versus if you're a lifestyle, there might be different questions. And if you're just asking a simple question, we don't need that information. But you fill that out, you submit. Again, that with the Netlify integration, that triggers an email to her work email account, and she's able to correspond with that person from that point on. So that's the contact form and how I use it there. And one other thing I wanted to show quickly on this website. Let's see this here. So a while ago, and this is kind of where this is leaning heavily towards like a website becoming almost more like a web application. She wanted to create a custom kind of pricing guide, because when you're kind of in the market for hiring a wedding photographer, it's not just like here's one set price. There's certain things you need, like number of hours or how many photographers are going to be there, etc. So she, after speaking with a potential client, she kind of makes a custom package or options, which we're calling collections here, that she puts together beforehand and gets on the phone with them and actually talks through. So here I did all this in Contentful. This is a reusable. This is kind of just a generic example, but she can create the pricing page specifically for the Johnson family or something like that. And then selecting on any of these options, it's like a gallery. So this is all custom made, that you select one, this is the price, this is what's in, this is what you covered, you get, etc. And here's some add-ons if you want additional time, or if you want one of those fancy albums that they print out, this is how much it costs. And it's really part of that, that sales engagement that she's doing over FaceTime and on the phone. So this was an example of kind of taking a simple website and then making it more into like a web app and adding new app, functionality. And so this was all, again, done with Contentful, and it's repeatable. She's able to make multiple pricing guides with the specific needs that one user might need, and she can customize those. So that's the website that I did for her. Again, I'll put all of these links, in the chat, or perhaps the link to the presentation. But at this point, I was starting to feel, a little bit more comfortable with these three items in the tech stack. And so what I did create about a couple of years ago, and I've just kind of been updating it here and there ever since, was I created a starter. So Gatsby has a concept of starters, which are kind of just like reusable templates that you can use, which are great. One of the points that I struggled with in the beginning is if you wanted to do something with Contentful, you need that content model, which there are some people, perhaps like Marcelo, who are really in the weeds with the content model. But when you're first learning Contentful, it's kind of like staring at a blank canvas. You're not quite yet familiar with it. So I wanted to give people a starting point. And so this is similar to what the official Contentful starter does, but there's kind of a setup process where you type in, you create an account with Contentful, and then you type in some of the questions. It's in via the terminal. It'll ask you like your space ID, etc. And the setup process will be all handled, so that when you go through the setup process, at the end, you get a website, which I'll go to now. It has basically placeholder content. I created, it's not, again, nothing super fancy here, but I've created a website that has the concept of pagination, right? We've got multiple pages with a bunch of placeholder content. These are dogs, right? Here's, the concept of tagging something, 3 post tags of fetch. We even have an example contact form. So all of this will be set up, and you'll have all of this kind of placeholder content created into your Contentful space so that you can get a hang of it. You can start editing the first post here and just start to get a feel for what the full experience is like at the end of the day, and then kind of just take it from there. So this is just meant to be a starting point, but I think it's definitely helpful to start with something like this and then edit it and tweak it and add more things rather than starting completely from scratch, which can at times be a little bit daunting. So those are the 3 kind of websites that I've created that all use the Gatsby, Netlify, and Contentful together. And I think they're, it's a great tech stack, which I think has a lot of potential. And then just to end on one note, here's an example site of somebody who took that starting point that I just showed you, that Gatsby starter, and added their own flavor. So this is a marketer, designer, developer. He took it, added his own flair, but you can kind of see the kind of the scaffolding that he started with. You can start to see a little bit of that here, but he made it his own. So that is basically what I wanted to show you. I'm happy to answer any questions or dive into more details for any of these, but just wanted to show you what I was building.
Yeah, no, Ryan, that's really cool. I really appreciate you sharing that. I really love the little animations you had on the website as well. They were a lot of fun too. Our comments have been pretty quiet all night. I haven't seen any questions come in, but I guess we can hang out for a little bit. Maybe see if anything pops in. And if you toss me those links in the private chat, I can send them out in the comments as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You got a second? Oh,
sorry
you
about
get
that.
to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Here, I'll take it off. It's okay.
Yeah, we stopped sharing for a second. I can do that. There we go.
There we go. Link number 1. I'm always a little scared that my keyboard is very loud and it's coming through, but hopefully it's...
No, it's not too bad.
Yep. So I've gone ahead and I've tossed those all in the comments. So for the folks that are watching, feel free to check those out as well. I don't think there are any questions that have come in since I brought it up. So I think maybe we are good to wrap it up for tonight here. Ryan, are you in the Contentful Slack or?
I joined today, so I'll take a look.
So if anyone has any questions, Ryan will be in there, and feel free to follow up afterwards. I know we do have a lot of people that end up watching a lot of our video stuff, the live video stuff after the fact, and so so feel free to reach out to any of us. Marcelo and David are both in there as well. If you want to talk about apps with David or content modeling with Marcelo, they're both around too. I don't know if we're going to have enough people for Among Us, but if you're curious, for the folks that are watching, if you want to do the post event kind of socially thing, do let us know. Just chime in the Slack in the monthly Hangouts channel, and we'd love to play some Among Us and maybe have a little bit of fun. Kind of get that. Normally we would be doing drinks and dinner on Contentful, but since we can't see each other, we could try video games together and see if we can get some of that spark and some of that fun that way virtually. But otherwise, that's it from us tonight. And thank you all so much for joining. Thank you again to Ryan and to Marcelo for speaking. And we'll hopefully see you either on Tuesday at one of our live streams, or we'll see you next month for our next meetup. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.